what's this?
Well, today is day 79 of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, and the world's oil stockpiles are depleting quickly, very fast, with only weeks of supplies left, according to the head of the IEA, the International
Another thing Asper Gold's completely unaware of.
Energy Agency. And President Trump is running out of patience. If you could read this from his Truth Social post, he sent another round of messages to Iran that the clock is...
Or more like he's slowly panicking because he knows his presidency is over and all options are bad for him. Surrendering to Iran, that's bad for him. Escalating, that's terrible for him too. And doing nothing is also... It is terrible, but it takes more time. It'll take 3 or 4 more months to really finish him politically if he twiddles his thumbs. And so, yeah, he's just lashing out and going crazy.
Is ticking. He said, if Iran surrenders, admits their navy is gone, resting at the bottom of the sea, their air force is no longer with us, if the entire military walks out of Tehran, drops their weapons, hands held high, shouting, I surrender, while wildly waving the representative white flag, and if their entire remaining leadership signs all necessary documents of surrender, then that's, I guess, where we'll be. Colonel Douglas Macgregor has been watching this very, very closely and the moves over the past few hours. And Colonel, we just hear, Middle East partners, I guess, also just within the last hour or so, asking President Trump, please stop this madness. I assume that Iran would then begin to target and hit the UAE and other energy infrastructure, desalinization operations inside.
I'm still 50-50 on whether we escalate or whether it's the long game, because the escalation probably happens now, if it's going to happen in the next week or two. And if it doesn't, then the likelihood of escalation goes down. The hot war resuming goes down. And then we're in the long game, which is we just need to wait for the economic pain in the rest of the world to be great enough so everyone gets together and tells us, Trump, okay, you lost a war and now go surrender to Iran. And Trump has to do that. It's humiliating. Asper Gold is all shocked. I thought we won the Iran war. And then the Strait of Hormuz finally get open and we get some oil.
Side of the UAE, Bahrain, God knows what else. Is that the pressure being applied to President Trump right now?
That presumes that he feels pressure, and I'm not sure he does. Whenever he's been questioned about the economic implications of financial crises and so forth, he waves it off as though, no, this doesn't matter. And whatever pain the American people are suffering, it'll be short term.
Yeah, anyone saying that the bombing is guaranteed to resume, I don't believe that. There are powerful forces on the other side saying not to resume. China and Russia, both. I know Putin's talked to Trump, and I know that Xi in China has also talked to Trump. And I guarantee you both of them said, don't start shit in Iran again. And so you'll regret it. And you have Iran saying, well, hit 4 targets for every one of our targets that's hit. And you probably have people in the Gulf that are desperate for Trump not to do it. And by the way, Saudi Arabia, Qatar closed their airspace. Trump can't fight Iran anymore. They need the airspace of... if Saudi Arabia says you can't fly over our territory anymore, attacking Iran becomes extremely difficult. Iraq is hostile to United States war efforts, and there's no bases there to use. And if you can't use all this airspace, to strike deep into Iran, you need the refueling jets that allow jet fighters to refuel mid-flight to have the distance needed to strike the targets they need to in Iran. So without Saudi Arabia and Qatar, that stops being possible. And Saudi Arabia, it is a puppet state. So, but at the same time, they face complete destruction if the war resumes. Because, I think you're going to have a complete disaster in the Gulf if it resumes. They've already gone. They will go after desalination plants this time. There won't be any water in this region of the world, and or any power. What do you do when it's 125 degrees and there's no water and power? You leave this region. The depopulation of the entire Middle East. No oil from there for a decade. For 3 to 5 years.
I think we've heard that sort of thing before. It didn't turn out to be that way. But nevertheless, that's his position. So I think right now, if you look objectively at all the indications or indicators of military action, what we've got out there in terms of air and naval power, and even now substantial light forces, light ground forces, I would say that the renewed war is a certainty. I would expect it to happen anytime.
A certainty.
I mean, what he's saying now.
Yeah, so some people say it's certainty, some people are less sure about it. Some people they thought it would already have started by now. And again, if Trump is going to restart, the more he delays, the worse it is for him. He's already had more than enough time to replenish all the ammunition, get anything he wanted into place. So at this point, it's just him chickening out, not going in. And Iran is not going to give him the surrender he wants. So if you're going to escalate, you might as well escalate, get it over with, or stop talking about it, because I'm getting tired of waiting. No, I'm kidding. But I am. Okay, from the perspective of America, if you're going to escalate, you might as doing it sooner is better. Just period. So there's no reason to drag it out if you're actually thinking about bombing Iran again.
Now, within the last hours, it was going to be tomorrow. Gulf leaders have asked me to hold off because talks are positive. But again, he's reiterating no nuclear weapons or nuclear of any kind for Iran. But was going to be tomorrow. We're just going to push that off. But it's clear. I mean, it's clear something is coming, right?
I think we're going to go back into the same war we were in before. I think he's going to go in probably with more force than he did previously. I'm sure that's what the general officers are promising him and the admirals are telling him. And, what was the definition of insanity that Einstein used to offer?
Doing the same thing and expecting different results.
Yeah, and I think that's where we are. Now, the other thing that nobody's considering is the possibility that Iran, whose forces are now resupplied, replenished, and so forth, may reveal some new capabilities we haven't encountered yet. That's a possibility. We don't exactly know with great precision everything that the Russians and the Chinese have provided to them. And we do admit privately that we grossly underestimated the engineering.
And Russia is really angry at the West right now. So I wouldn't be surprised they upped their aid to Iran.
Skills of the Iranians. So this could turn out to be a lot worse on both sides than it was the last time. I think that's very much a certainty.
And I'm just curious about the Middle East partnership of all of this, and on the United States side, but more specifically on the attacks that would come from Iran. The idea that Iran would, frankly, devastate the UAE, really wipe Dubai off the map for all intents and purposes, hitting, again, energy infrastructure, desalinization. Like, the list is pretty extensive, what they would hit, rendering that country basically useless. Does President Trump seem to care about that?
Well, as I said before, I think that's a tertiary concern.
That's a loss that Israel is willing to accept.
As far as he's concerned. And I think in private, the leadership of the UAE is probably cheering him on, despite what you just described as a likely outcome. Let me explain that. I think people need to understand that the
UAE is a U.S. puppet state. And it's going to do what the U.S. wants, even if it's completely fucks over their own country. Because their interest is... Their purpose is not to further the interest of people who live in the UAE. It's to further the interest of the people who live in New York. And they work at the Exchange Stabilization Fund / Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve.
He is very much a Trojan horse for Israeli and American power and influence. And it has been a thorn in the side of Iran for a very long time. If you're an Iranian, you very much welcome the opportunity to annihilate this platform for the projection of power against you. So the UAE will definitely be struck, and most of it will be flattened or destroyed. Now, I don't know where all the money goes. It's probably sitting in New York City, London, other places. But you're right. The majority of the population, I think we had at the beginning of the war, an estimated 67 million people living from Iraq's border on the west coast of the Persian Gulf all the way down to Oman. I don't think there's half of that left at this point. And I think more will leave. They'll bundle up in their automobiles or SUVs. They'll drive across the desert to Riyadh. And from Riyadh, you can get an aircraft flight to various places. So I think that's inevitable. And I think President Trump has really played the media for suckers. How many times has he manipulated the stock market and investors? And most investors really believe that one of two...
That's because on this issue, on the Iran war, Trump is aligned with the deep state. And the deep state controls the media. So, and anything regarding Iran, the media is cheerleading him, is protecting him, and is amplifying his own lies, because it's basically lies he's telling on their behalf.
Is going to happen. Either Trump tacos, as they like to say, chickens out, leaves, or Trump doubles down and crushes Iran. And when you talk to people, they say, the Marines and the Navy, they'll seize the strait, they'll march in, they'll take all this over, this won't last much longer. They have no idea what the topography is like. They don't understand what they're dealing with. They don't understand the climate, the conditions. They absolutely have no idea what kind of capabilities we're up against, particularly...
Iran is a mountain, a fortress. Just look at that. This is all like mountains. Iraq was flat, except for this northern region. It is a cakewalk in comparison to Iran. 4 times the size of Iraq, and mountainous. It's one of the most difficult countries to invade in the world.
An air and missile defense. So at this stage, I'd say yes. We're going to see the war restart. It'll probably last as long as the last phase did. And I see no evidence that the Iranians are going to do anything remotely along the lines of what President Trump expects or would like.
What happens to Israel in this?
Well, if you're an Israeli right now,
The danger, yes, is that Iran is going to hit Israel a lot harder. And then the danger is that nukes get used at some point in this. That not at the beginning, it'll be conventional at the beginning. But just like during the last hot phase of the war, commentators were worrying that Israel was going to hit really hard. They might use a nuke soon. That dynamic will be in play again, except more so because Israel will get hit even harder. And will a nuke get used? Will we have that fun to deal with this summer?
your view is, for the moment, you have control of the United States Armed Forces and its government. You know, this is a unique point in the history of the Israeli state. They have, for many decades, tried very hard to gain control in terms of voting power on the Hill, enough people to guarantee the flow of aid and support to Israel. Well, you know, that was relatively unchallenging. But what they know now is that this war has had a distinctly negative impact on public opinion in the United States regarding Israel. Now, public opinion hasn't mattered a great deal. You know, we've gone to war before, whether or not.
Ultimately, you can subvert the will of people considerably in a democracy, but not totally. When something is overwhelmingly rejected by the vast majority of people in a democracy, no amount of lobbying and cash from abroad is going to change that. And the days of Israel receiving endless support are over. It'll take time to play out completely, but it's inevitable.
The American people were consulted or wanted it. And this is a perfect example of doing that yet again. This time, Congress didn't even receive a note in the mail. It was Congress stood up and gave the obligatory standing ovation when the State of the Union was given, and Israel and Iran were mentioned. So, you know, at this point, everybody's on board. This is Tucker Carlson's ship of fools, full steam ahead. And the American people aren't with it, but it doesn't matter.
Well, don't you hate when people say, I told you so? Yeah, that's me, actually, because I did tell you. Sorry, but I told you that gold and silver were going to reap the benefits of excessive money printing, the Fed just printing money like crazy, overvalued markets, global unrest. It's here. It's happened. Gold and silver have both soared to all-time highs. So I hope you called our friends at Lear Capital and you bought some. If you didn't, trust me, it's not too late. Experts are predicting even higher prices ahead. And they get it. They know what's coming. Isn't it time, folks? Get your wealth. Natalie and I have done it
I also think gold is a good investment.
for both, and dollars and free.
To Virginia over the weekend, but I believe it was a 326-day deployment, which was one of the longest sea assignments in over half of a century. They didn't know they would be out there this long. They didn't mean to. Many of them are going to say, I'm not doing that again. I don't know if it will have much impact on recruitment, but a lot of them will say, forget this. What is the temperament of the military that the president is relying on?
Well, you're correct about soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines at lower levels. A lot of them are fed up. There's no question about it. They're tired of being abused. Well, we've been through this now for almost 20 years. In fact, I would say more than 20 years. And the attitude in the senior ranks is, so what? There are more where they came from. I mean, literally, that's been my experience. These people don't like it. Don't worry about it. We can enlist other people. And when you tell them, well, you may not get the quality recruits that you need. Well, we've been through that before. That doesn't matter either. So, you know, to be perfectly blunt, I think the senior officers are not going to give that much thought. They just won't. So let's turn to the senior officers, the 4 stars and 3 stars. Remember what every general wants. Every general wants another star. And the 3s all want to be 4 stars. And the 4 stars all want to follow the career path that David Petraeus and Jack Keane and others have followed. What, Kurilla has done, even McKenzie, who was the architect of the disaster when we left Afghanistan, they have all bent the knee to Israel. They have all gone to the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy and said, verily, I swear allegiance, I will do as directed.
Why is a Foundation for Democracy, what's it called again?
Of the disaster when we left Afghanistan, they have all bent the knee to Israel. They have all gone to the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy.
Foundation for the Defense of Democracy. Why is that Israel an Israeli vehicle? I don't think Israel should be championing democracy.
And said, verily, I swear allegiance, I will do as directed. So everybody's lined up because they look at what happens when the senior officers retire, who unhesitatingly, unquestioningly obey these orders and execute. They get filthy rich in retirement. And then as you go down through the ranks, all the way down to full colonels, brigadier generals, major generals, they want part of the action.
The lesson from this is Yeah, it's completely corrupt. It's just like people working for the FDA then going to drug companies to work at drug companies. It's the revolving door of Washington. It's filthy corruption. It's a swamp.
They know they can't get the
And the only reason that can happen is the media never covers it. It's always the alternative media. And the lack of coverage from like New York Times, CNN, whatever, to all these blatant examples of corruption. Yeah, they mention it once in the blue moon and then complain, oh, how corrupt are they? No, they should be hammering it at home every day so Americans demand change. That's the only way you get change, is when you demand it.
political favors, the financial opportunities that are given to the threes and fours, but they want to be part of it. So they've got their hands out and they're looking for jobs too. So if you're waiting for the senior ranks to stand up and be counted and say, we find this reprehensible, this is not morally consistent with my values, my moral conscience will not permit me to obey these orders, I think you're in for a very long wait. You're not going to hear that. You're going to be
I don't care about that, about rejecting the war. I care about nuclear weapons. Just make sure Trump doesn't use a nuke. At least resign over something like that, at least. Otherwise, then I do think he should be any military officer that goes along with like an order to nuke Iran should be court-martialed and spend the rest of his life in jail.
very disappointed.
Colonel, I guess we'll get you out of here on this. I'm curious about the missiles, the United States stockpiles. I keep reading reports about how depleted they've been. Could take up to 3 to 5 years to try to get back the THAAD systems, Patriot systems, all of this that we've exhausted in just a few weeks against Iran. Are we even prepared militarily with stockpiles and munitions to go in and carry out some sort of a massive regime change operation at this stage?
No, you're not going to see a massive regime change. But what we do have the capability of doing is mass destruction of Iran's infrastructure and much of its society. And right now, that's the goal. You're trying to cause the disintegration of the government and the people that constitute the society. You're trying to ruin everyone's life.
The same goal as with Russia. It's to break the goal is to loot the country and dollarize the country to make sure Iran, they use the dollar as their currency so that we can import our inflation there. And they're running out of other countries to dollarize. They've taken care of Syria. They've taken care of Libya, Somalia, Iraq. It's one of the last places left. It's one of the hardest to go after, but they're trying.
Life in Iran. The theory is if you do this, everyone will go to the streets and say enough, and you'll get the sort of fantasy picture that President Trump spun out on his last Truth Social. Everybody says, we surrender, we give up, please, take whatever you want, leave us alone. That's not going to happen. I mean, we tried that during World War II. It didn't really work. And even when people point to the atomic bomb, the truth is that the Soviet offensive in Manchuria, well underway, had a much bigger impact on the Japanese leadership because the last thing they wanted was to be occupied by the Soviets. They knew what that meant: mass rape, murder, oppression, destruction. So much better to surrender to the Americans. But unfortunately, people believe that you can bomb people into submission. No matter how many times you try and it fails, it doesn't matter. So I think that's where we are.
It's like that meme. We're going to do it anyway. There's all these reasons not to.
There's a couple of things to think about, though, and this is very important. Things are going to get very rough next month.
Yeah.
You're going to see the proverbial chickens come home to roost. This oil and gas problem is going to spread.
That is, yes. Next month, I've said it, yes. The summer is when this is going to hit. There was a lot of oil on ships still moving when the Strait of Hormuz closed, and so you had a month and a half of all that arriving. Then you have the governments releasing their oil reserves, but that only lasts so long. And the summer, when demand picks up, yeah, it's going to get crazy.
The fertilizer issue is real. Famine is going to break out before the end of the year in a number of different countries. But a lot of things are not going to be available to us here at home. And when Americans feel that kind of pain,
Hunger, food prices that will begin towards the end of the year, and it'll really explode next year.
they're going to look at the government and say, what did you do? And at that point, I think this government is going to be in a lot of trouble. And anybody who says, well, this was really the fault of Republicans, that's nonsense. All these Democrats are on board. They're all along for the ride. And everybody has their hands out for money.
Yes, Democrats would have done this too. But the problem is, the one who ultimately gave the order was Trump. If he said no, nothing would have happened. So the blame will rightly fall with him for this Iran war, the high gas prices, all the economic destruction. And that's going to kill the Republicans in the midterms.
Well, there's not enough money to buy off tens of millions of angry Americans who can't feed their families, who can't get to work, who can't afford their automobiles.
You can manipulate democracy a lot, but not totally. And this type of anger over soaring gas prices, yeah, no manipulation can kill that.
Can't afford gas. So just tuck that away and keep in mind that that's where we're headed beyond the current war.
Yeah, until they roll out some sort of universal basic income and push us further and further into debt, print more money.
Asmongold, that's one of the things he favors, universal income. Ah. And money grows on trees, Asmongold. You know that? Where exactly does this universal income come from? Who is wealthy enough to pay it?
More fake money.
Yeah.
And keep the machine going.
Well, we're going to talk about the borrowed time that we're on in the U.S. economy later in the show, but thank you for that warning because, yeah, it's not good. If the economy was a human, it'd be on life support.
No, it would have been.
No, the reason I said this the other day that because the U.S. media portrays it as we can endlessly deficit spend, and the rest of the world will fund it. There are no negative consequences to that. That's the reason why people like Asmongold believe in universal income. Is they believe, the United States can just spend endlessly. They see the like $1 trillion on the military. They think, why can't we have universal income? It's not endless. He doesn't understand all the stuff that's going on behind the scene and where that money in the Pentagon is going and why it's that money in the Pentagon is going to maintain the U.S. hegemony over the world, and that hegemony is what props up the dollar. So it's actually necessary spending in a way to at least keep the whole U.S. Ponzi scheme going. And no, United States can't spend endlessly. Well, yes, the collapse of the dollar is going to fix a lot of the wealth disparity in the world. I can tell you, the 1% are going to lose a tremendous amount of wealth when the dollar collapses, and the world will be a lot more equal.
Like Frank, it'd be dead already.
Frankenstein.
Yeah, and trying to resuscitate it. I mean, at this point, I have $40 trillion in debt. I was speaking to an investor today. He said it's beyond fixable. Like it is unfixable at 40.
It's Ponzi scheme. The debt is just one thing. The dollarization of the world, which depends on the U.S. maintaining its hegemony with a military that's in relative terms depreciating, and we compare our military today to 20 years ago to 40 years ago. We are a shadow of our former selves. And yet we're just trying to control the entire world. And the dollar depends on us controlling basically the entire world. And as that control fades, you're going to have a huge amount of dollars coming back from places abroad that stop using dollar as their currency, which is going to fuel our inflation. And combine that with the national debt, the state of our financial system. Yeah, there's no saving the U.S.
Nearly $40 trillion in debt. So I don't know what the future looks like for the U.S. dollar, but it is not good. Colonel, great to see you as always. Thank you for your great insights over the national conversation, and always sobering. But to the Colonel's point, this renewed military attack is imminent. Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for watching Redacted.
Well, that was a nice little video on the situation in Ukraine, which the situation in Iran. A nice little video on the situation in Iran, and I do hope we don't go up the escalation path, because I've said it 1,000 times, the Middle East will go up in flames, but that is what happens if the war starts again. If bombs start flying, the best outcome I see is half the Gulf going up in flames, and then maybe Trump tackling out at that point. But it's just as likely that it just continues up the escalation ladder until Israel drops a nuke. It's not fun. Anyway, this will be on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Come watch on Kick or Twitch, and I'll see you next video. Bye.